Well, thank you for the folks that have come here to talk on our non-agenda items. And we have Gerald McGrath who speaks first, followed by Melissa.
Dear council members, is this working now? Yeah, good. I'm here tonight to talk to you about the heritage tree ordinance that we don't have. But first, a little bit of background. Last week, a healthy, large black walnut tree was cut down on Neptune Drive. It was 115 foot tall, 55-inch stem diameter, and over 100 years old. While sitting there for the last 100 years, annually it created 6,000 pounds of oxygen out of approximately 6,000 pounds of CO2 greenhouse gas. This tree just had to die because his owner didn't like it anymore, and he was tired of cleaning up after it in autumn. Because of it was his tree, he could do with it whatever he wanted, no matter how old or how large it was. Even after the tree trimming company had explained to him that they could just trim it back, he did sentence it to death. He wanted to have it gone. Several of us were there, and he did not really care what the public, the neighborhood, thought about this, nor did he think in any way about the urban environment and what the death of this tree would do to Neptune Drive. In other cities, this would have not been easy to cut this tree down. It was a healthy tree, and most cities in California by now have a Heritage Tree Act. Also, a lot of other U.S. cities have it. They call it sometimes heritage tree or landmark trees. I just Googled this problem, and within the first click, I got approximately 20 cities around him. It's Livermore, Pleasanton, Dublin, San Mateo, San Jose, Berkeley, Menlo Park, Palo Alto, Mountain View, Santa Cruz, and so on and so on. You have the list in front of you. I gave you a printout. I just got a call from Burlingame that actually is very proactive in it, and a few houses went up there where trees actually were integrated in the foreyard or backyard, just to achieve not to have to cut this tree down. But disappointingly, San Leandro really is here the negative exception. Within the Heritage Tree Ordinance, homeowners must apply for permission to cut it down a tree. That doesn't necessarily mean that every tree in San Leandro will be protected. It's just it will be investigated. But if there would be an engineering problem, or if there would be damage to a house, like a large tree damages sewer or foundation of a house or so, it still can be cut down. But just it would not be allowed to cut a heritage or landmark tree down just on a whim because I'm tired of it. And we do talk a lot about the environment in the city. I did hear it quite a bit. We do talk a lot on our website and on meetings here about trees, and that trees are our environment. So I really think that the council should really very seriously commit to taking on one of those Heritage Tree Acts. The one question
if you
of
could
few people, we actually handed out
if you
flyers.
could conclude your comments, please.
Oh, yes. Okay, good. Yes, I like to ask you to, think about this, as it is not necessary to cut these trees down on a whim. Okay, I didn't realize that time is over that quick. So I gave you a handout that actually has a copy of the Heritage Tree Act of the city of San Mateo. It's not a very special one. It's very condensed and very straightforward, easy to read, with including a list of the cities that adopted that act, just around the area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Melissa Margraf, and I also strongly support the San Leandro Heritage Tree Ordinance for protecting large trees, old trees, or some type of special tree. Trees are really assets that contribute to a city's urban environment. I think many of you know this, but it's so obvious. Protecting trees are in line with the state's climate action goals. They reduce heat buildup, they reduce noise, they reduce air pollution by converting greenhouse gas, they improve air quality by providing oxygen, and they protect natural resources by preventing erosion, runoff, and improving water retention. Moreover, trees really enhance the aesthetics. How many times have you seen photos of beautiful, large, old trees? They contribute to scenic views, to color. Trees also are very important to increasing and sustaining property values. In particular, the homes that Garrett and I have bought, and that I bought before I was married to Garrett, have been based as much on the house as it has been to the trees in the area, the trees in the yard, the trees in the street. Trees are so important. Large and old trees, though, are very, very special. These are the trees we're talking about when we talk about heritage trees. These trees may have been around for a couple hundred years. Black walnut trees sometimes live hundreds of years. They not only contribute to the aesthetics and the environment, but they contribute to the city's history and the history of the people that live in the city, to the community's history. I truly believe that the urban forest requires a stewardship of both the community and the city. And right now, this stewardship is missing by the city of San Leandro. And as Garrett has talked to you, many other cities have taken it upon themselves to be stewards of these large trees. So I ask of you to help put forward and pass a heritage tree ordinance to protect these jewels of San Leandro's urban forest. Thank you.
Ooh, Reiser? I think it's, or is it Liz? Is it Ella? Eisler. Okay, I'm sorry. It looked like a UZ.
Sorry, it's my printing. Hi, good evening. We do need to preserve large trees. And according to Dr. Jerry F. Franklin, who is part of the American Forest Science Advisory Board, I'm sorry, usually I'm so nervous I don't usually, I gotta read this up. He says big trees are not simply enlarged versions of young trees. And this is a critical point that most people think. They think that they can cut down a large tree and replace it with a young tree. That's not the case. I'm not here just for myself, and I think the other lady said many reasons why you should have a large tree. I'm actually here for my neighbors. They're Don and Ethel Woolery. Don is a World War II vet, and when he came home, the city planted the tree in front of his house. We have 3 on our street, beautiful, large sycamore trees. Don's tree, that is a city tree, is humongous. And many times Don has come out and has had to fight the neighbor next door because he's always wanted to cut the tree down. And I'm here actually for them and also to tell you that this tree is a wonderful tree. I don't want anything to happen to this tree. And as I'm nervous, I have to look at this. I think as a city, we really do need an ordinance to protect these trees. When Don and Ethel are gone, the house will probably be sold, and who knows what will happen to the city tree. It seems like you can call the city up, and you can ask to have the tree removed, and then the tree is just removed. So I wish Don and Ethel could be here, but Ethel is in a wheelchair, and Don barely sloughs along, but they're still alive, and he still comes out and pats the tree. So if you ever were to go down, all the streets in Washington Manor area that I'm in are named after World War II generals. And so anyways, I'm here for Don and Ethel and also for myself. I really wish that the city would do something with an ordinance to at least protect the trees. At least the people have to present something before the tree is just cut down. They saw the newspaper article of the large tree, and both of them called me up, wanted to know what we could do about the trees. So anyways, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Gerald, you have a letter from Audrey Alpers?
Okay, I'm sorry, it's me again. Audrey called me this afternoon, and as you know, Audrey is getting rather on in age, and she's nearly blind. She really wanted to come tonight, but she just couldn't, so she kind of gave me her notes, and I asked me to read this out to you. Okay, good. First of all, she likes to state that all people on her street, and she lives one street above Neptune Drive, were very upset and very sad about the death of this tree. A lot of those folks are rather old, and we do remember this tree for a long time. She remembers it from 1950 on, and she does not understand why this tree was allowed to be cut down. I do know, she says, that this tree was probably to a quarter at least on city property, because it was right on the curb, and it did not have to be cut down even if a house would want to be built behind it with a 20-foot setback on Neptune Drive. You can't even build that close. Another thing she states is that she and her friend put down a little memorial in front of the tree, and the owner of this tree that was cut down sent the police after her for trespassing, so she thought that was rather pathetic. Okay, and that were Audrey's comments. Thank you.
John Manuel?
I'm here tonight basically to support my neighbor as the development of an ordinance that will protect these heritage trees. This tree that's been discussed tonight in detail is also on my street, so I do have a connection with it as well. The specifics supplied by the Margraffs, let alone the article in the San Leandro Times, show their resolve to bring a change. San Leandro has had a tree planting ordinance that was enforced when we first came to the area. For $50, the city would plant a tree. My thoughts have always been that the city was very proactive when it came to tree planting. Some years ago, I was involved with a small association, and we were prepared to do a PowerPoint presentation to the council to plant trees on William Street between Aurora and Doolittle. Jim Prola was present at that meeting. I think he really appreciated the fact that we would do something proactive, constructive for the community. And I can honestly say to this day, the trees are there. In conclusion, please adopt an ordinance to protect these heritage trees and encourage communities to plant trees, not cut them down. Not cut them down. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Steve Modifer?
I'm Steve Modifer, President MGIA, Mulford Gardens Improvement Association, which is what we're all talking about here, is improving our association. I sort of came thinking I was going to wing it, and then I'm sitting in the out there, and I'm thinking, what would be a good point to bring up about this heritage tree situation? Certainly, cutting trees down is not a good thing. Whether you believe in global warming or not, when tree gives off oxygen, takes away carbon dioxide, that's a good thing, right? But is there anybody here that's over 100 years old? So you won't remember exactly from experience what was going on in 1914. But we had this thing called World War I started. Mother's Day began in 1914. Babe Ruth played his first professional ball game. and Ford invented the assembly line for the Model T. That was a long time ago. And as we all know, the world has gotten a lot better because of most of those things, certainly not the war, but that puts a nice little accent on what period of time we're talking about. Oh yeah, there was this 1-year-old oak tree that was living in Mulford Gardens, a place where there was nothing but this tree. There were some farms, probably, I'm not sure, but there was this tree. And the community kept growing and growing and growing, but the tree stayed there and it grew as well. So then 2014 shows up and somebody had a little hair up their whatever and they decided they're going to cut it down. For some reason, that just doesn't seem right. And to think that there might have been a law, very simply put and stated, Gerd gave you an example, San Mateo, I guess there's a model law that you could look at, read, kind of understand what it can do for you, what it can do for San Leandro, that will protect the trees, life that began 100 years ago, that will give history to a place like San Leandro that can't get cut down. It'll be there. It'll be there maybe for another 100 years. But at this point, that tree didn't have the choice. If you drove by, I drove by this tree and saw what had happened after it was brought to my attention, and I thought, oh my God, it's sad. It's like looking at a dead thing that used to have life, you know, and lots of history. I've got a tree that's probably, well, as big as that tree, maybe not as old, in my front yard, and I would hate to see it get cut down. It breaks once in a while, and I fix it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. The issue of the tree ordinance, let's talk about that under item number 14, and why don't we go to that right now? I think that's, Councilmember Souza, you mentioned the idea of a youth town hall, and I think that's just something we need to think about maybe with time, and just, I don't want to lose that idea, but I want to recognize that. That's something for us to think about maybe later as to how we could schedule that, or, talk to our city manager about that as well. In terms of, because we already do have a calendar for this year though, so we have to take that into account. But on the tree ordinance, so let's just cut to the chase. I think who's in favor of having staff develop it? Okay, so I think it's the 7-0. So we'll assign to the city manager to undertake with our city attorney the development of a tree heritage ordinance. We can look at what was done in the 90s here and look at the best models from other cities and communities, and come back with a specific proposal for our review in a timely manner. But I won't ask for a specific deadline at this point, but I do think it is something that could be done. Well, you give me some idea. What's
I appreciate the templates, and that would be our first choices to look at what's available out there, and also look at what was proposed. As Vice Mayor Polis mentioned, I don't think it'll take that long. We're not going to reinvent the wheel on any of this.
okay?
But I'm sure there are create a presentation for you all to consider policy choices and implications.
Okay, and the only thing I'd say for the members of the audience that came here to speak on this is just bear in mind that we're working on other ordinances. We have other projects out there. So it's like, well, we talk about one item, and one item itself seems very simple. Why can't you just do it like that? The problem is that there's a whole range of other work that's occurring, so we need to work with it in that context. But I do think it is something that we could advance in a time period measured by months, and not half year or so. So hopefully we'll be back talking about this more in depth, and we'll within a matter of months, and we'll give you notice as to when it's coming back on the agenda to get your input, or we put up a draft of it on our website and get feedback on, because I'm sure there will be some nuance, but there's some good models that you've given us. So thank you for standing up for the trees and standing up for our community. Okay.